JD Vance has gotten a lot of heat, deservedly so, for his childless cat lady comments. Generally, when he has said those things, as we've profiled in podcasts and shows and to audiences, there's no real pushback because he's surrounded by people that agree with him. But in one case, there actually was. Even a host on Newsmax had a problem with what he was saying. And we'll get to that. But first, here are the comments that are going to be pushed back on.
I was looking at the leaders of the Democrats and realized how many of the next gen leaders of the Democrats, it's Kamala Harris, it's AOC, it's a lot of folks like that. They're not planning to have kids. They don't have kids. And I noticed that, not having children, I think, changes the way you think about the future of the country if you don't have skin in the game. And I realized that we're being ruled by a childless elite. And it's not just they don't have kids. Of course, a lot of people don't have kids for different reasons. It's that they're proud of the fact they don't have kids. They think it's bad if you have kids. They think it's bad for the environment. They're proud of their abortions. They shout their abortions from the rooftops. We're entering a new era where the leaders of the left are not just without kids. They're proud of that fact, and they look down on people who invest their time and their future in their children.
Okay, so you've heard him say things like that before. He's a deeply strange man with deeply weird thoughts about you and your life choices and other people around you. He has respect for max a few dozen people in America.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
But as I said, in this case, I'm not the only one that's gonna be pushing back. One of those hosts, and I'll let you guess ahead of time which one it's gonna be, actually did push back against what he was saying. Take a look.
JD, so I'm curious. I take a different stance, a little bit different than you and Steve, respectfully. There are about a quarter of the population that chooses not to have kids. These are perhaps some of the hardest working, most career-driven people that you'll find. Are we not painting this group with perhaps a broad brush? Because not everybody is of that mentality that, I'm not doing it because of climate change. Some people just choose a little bit differently. And should those people not be excluded because perhaps society's changing a little bit? Perhaps people are seeing the American dream as, focusing on their careers. What are your thoughts?
Look, I don't really know Pellegrino, that host. This might be the only time I've seen her say anything that we've covered on the show. And so I like that she pushed back, although I do feel kind of bad, and feel free to give me your thoughts, Sharon, that like he's utterly disrespecting people for making decisions, even decisions that they'll have kids maybe, because they're not having the exact sort of kids at the time that he wants, in the way that he wants. He thinks they have no skin in the game. They don't care about the future, whatever. Again, this is a party that doesn't care about climate change or whatever, happily sends soldiers to die abroad, whatever. Like the idea that they care about these people is insane, and she pushes back, but she has to be very careful. Because if she seems too emotional about it or angry about it, if you don't do it with a proper bow down to this powerful man who has kids, so he matters, well, then you could lose your entire career. I mean, you might get death threats. And so I do have sympathy for her, but she pushes back. And here is him kind of backtracking a little bit because he is a weak man. And when someone disagrees with him, he doesn't feel as strong as he did, but also kind of doubling down at the same time.
Look, you do not have a future as a country unless you have the next generation, unless you have babies, unless you have viable, healthy families. And I think so much of what's going on in the left, especially, is that they've become obsessed with this idea that having a kid is like an old-fashioned thing. It's something the previous generations did. Look, if people don't want to have kids, that's their choice, but we shouldn't turn it into a lifestyle brand, and we shouldn't point our finger at those hicks in middle America who have children, because those are the people who are gonna actually be the future of this country, whether we like it or not.
Okay, Sharon, because I want your thoughts. But really fast, I love at the end the like that's some of the most grade A projection I've ever seen in my life. It's the libs that are obsessed with whether people are having kids. They're pointing the finger. You know how like I go on rants all the time. I choose like a random family in Indiana, and then I check them for having kids. Why are you having kids? I don't like it. It's bad for the environment. I do that all the time. I'm really weird like that. He's the one who's obsessed. He's literally pointing fingers at people, including people who have kids. He's pointing at Kamala Harris and she has kids. He's talking about AOC. He understands how deeply strange he is, but he has to put it off on other people. What do you think?
Yeah, a disclaimer once again on this show. I'll tell you, I have no PhD. I am not a therapist or anything like that. But this is look up narcissism. The projection is real. Malignant narcissist, force of control. He is textbook in my view, my layman's view. And I have less sympathy for. I think it's Miss Pellegrino, who used to be the OAN correspondent, which tells me everything I need to
Oh,
know.
really?
Because she says, respectfully, and you're right, she tiptoes and look, it just go all in. He doesn't deserve any respect for what he is spewing. It is utter nonsense. It is narcissistic, and he is sick. In a clinical, again, you can't call me a doctor, but I'm telling you, he's clinically ill. It is diagnosable.
Yeah. By the way, don't worry about like the degrees or whatever. You have the only thing that gives a person, especially a mere woman, value. You have a kid. So you count. You count. You get to have a voice in politics, maybe not a vote in the future, but you get to have a voice for now. And I have a kid, so I get to have a voice. So we're two important, special, shiny, glowy people, according to JD Vance. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.